The Cardinals are in Sarasota playing Baltimore for one more game. I am not there. I'm not with the team. I'm getting mentally prepared for opening day and the Jordan Walker show and all the things that come along with this insane Cardinals team. But yeah, they broke camp from Jupiter yesterday. They have their final game today. Looks like their lineup today very much to me resembles what we'll see on Thursday for opening day.
Interesting. That's normally how it works. So the Cardinals broke yesterday from Jupiter. Now they're in Sarasota, which is always the worst because if you finish on the road, you just want to get the game over with. Mm-hmm. We talked about this, Katie. Like the last spring training game is like, let's hurry this up and swing at the first pitch and so we can get on the plane and get to St. Louis or wherever they open. Mm-hmm. But Roger Dean has hosted the Cardinals for, I don't know, 20 years or so, at least 20 years.
Yeah, about 25.
So they're redoing it, and it's going to take 2 years. Where are the Cardinals going to play next year in the Marlins? Are they going to have a new home? Are they going to share like with the Astros? How's that going to work?
No, unfortunately for the Cardinals and the Marlins, I'm pretty sure they're staying at Roger Dean, but Roger Dean is being demolished, so it's going to be like trailer clubhouses, and they're going to work out outside. It's not ideal, especially because the players have been like pretty honest about, okay, the conditions at Roger Dean aren't great. Some upgrades would be nice. And they're going to have to, I think, go down a little bit before things get better. But right now, the current plan is to just kind of make do with what they have at Roger Dean, which it won't be a lot. So we'll see how that goes.
So there'll be nobody complaining from Cardinals camp last year. Derek Gould, you guys will be like, man, this place sucks. Every tweet I see.
Yes, I will be complaining 100%.
Because baseball players never complain about little things like clubhouses, food, having to work out. No.
Baseball writers, broadcasters, anybody, fans.
No, I've never had a complaint in my life.
This sport is the king of complaining.
So tell us about the Walker thing with him getting called up. I mean, was it expected? We all saw the videos. It was amazing how Ollie Marmol did it, and they were all in there. But was this expected, or was this probably a year ahead of his time?
You know, I think when the Cardinals went into spring training, their president of baseball ops, John Mozeliak, was pretty honest in saying Jordan had every opportunity to make the club. It was just a matter of what he could do performance-wise, which I think Jordan certainly proved that within the first couple of weeks. I mean, I saw this dude hit a 460-foot home run in Palm Beach, and it was just kind of evident there. Like, balls off the bat don't make that sound if you're a normal human. This is not a normal human. And then it really just came down to where the Cardinals could put him. They've never really promoted top prospects, so they don't really have a reputation with service time manipulation. They've only promoted their top prospects when there is a sure route for these guys to play every single day. So the Cardinals have a pretty stacked outfield, and Dylan Carlson, Tyler O'Neill, and Lars Nootbaar. With Walker in the mix, he's probably going to be their starting left fielder for opening day. They needed to figure out what they're going to do with Carlson. Sounds like he'll be a platoon pinch hit guy. He's a switch hitter who can also play all three outfield positions. So very exciting for Jordan Walker. He'll wear number 18. I don't know how much time you guys have seen him or been around him, but his poise, his mannerisms, it's so easy to forget he's 20 years old. I'll talk to him sometimes and I'm like, you are so much more mature than me. Like maybe twice as mature as me, and you're significantly younger. He's really just a special talent. So very exciting in St. Louis to see him.
What were you hearing? What were you hearing last year? Like, was this guy going to be the guy, or do you feel like you kind of mentioned it, the whole service time manipulation? Like, while the Cardinals haven't been, involved with that, like, does that kind of change? Does it kind of change how they allow these rookies to come up, or was this guy, did you think he was going to make the team before you even watched him play?
I had some reservations, not because of Jordan for any means, but because he's only been playing the outfield professionally for about half a season. He's never played AAA. Of course, we're seeing in so many cases now that does not really mean anything. But for me, has Jordan experienced enough in the outfield to play every single day, knowing who the Cardinals had in their projected starting outfield? But what he did in AA, which I think was just by far his most impressive season, and how he carried himself in camp, I mean, it's just a really special talent, and he earned and deserved every bit of it. Just talking to Jordan, I think you'll see pretty easy on that this is a special guy with, I don't know. I'm always hesitant to put labels on prospects because the adjustment to the big leagues, as you guys know, is insane. But this just seems like one of the most exciting names the Cardinals have brought up in a significant while.
Hey, Katie, if the Cardinals get into any fights this year, are they glad to have Jordan on their side? He looks like he would have 20 sacks in the NFL.
Dude, I think I have to bring like a stool to interviews with Jordan. There's a video of me talking to him and like I go up to like maybe here, like maybe like bicep range. And I look like one of those kid reporters that gets to like asked to go to camp for a day. Like I do not look like a working professional. He made me look like I was like 16 and like one of those junior reporters, like so excited to ask a question. But yes, between him, the always fiery Nolan Arenado, and Willson Contreras, who has been a great addition for that team, I think they have a pretty good shot in winning any kind of brawls.
So before we get to Contreras, I do have one more question on the Jordan Walker thing. So you just said he's the biggest prospect in a while since Dylan Carlson, right? I mean, he was kind of the big thing that was coming for St. Louis. And so now he's going to take it back. So that assumes Nootbaar is going to play center every day. And then Tyler O'Neill is going to play DH, because I'm kind of confused how they're going to work him into the lineup every day, because there's so many people moving parts. You have, Donovan, you have all these guys, who Edmund, where he's going to play, and then you got DeYoung. So there's a lot of moving parts on how they're going to get him at bats every day.
Yes. It's very complicated to figure out. But one thing about Ollie Marmol that we learned in his first year as manager last year is he really does not stick to the same lineup every day. He really likes lineup fluidity. And because of the versatility of the Cardinals defensively throughout the whole roster, they think they'll be able to do it. So the way it's looking at it right now is they had an open competition for center field. And I don't think they'll have a true set starting fielder because all three of those guys, O'Neill, Carlson, and Nootbaar, can play center. I think Tyler O'Neill will see the majority of reps there, though. But Nootbaar and Carlson can trade in. Carlson can DH. Nolan Gorman can DH. Brendan Donovan can play pretty much anywhere in the field. So they have a lot of pieces that they can able to like swap in and out. And that's what we saw from Ollie last year. That was more out of necessity, though. Now that he has a bunch of players that are, one, coming off stellar camps, and two, proven themselves at the major league level, we'll be able to see how he kind of like picks and puts together the pieces. The only set things he'll have in his lineup that he said will be Goldschmidt, Arenado, Contreras hitting 3, 4, 5. We know the positions those guys play. Everything else is going to be fluid. And that to me is a huge strength for the Cardinals. I mean, I think gone are the days where you have your starting 1 through 9. Now, with all the splits, the matchups, the data that you have, the analytics, I think the Cardinals really benefit from having so many different players that can play so many different positions where they can really maximize the matchups.
Nice. Ollie Marmol, Dr. Phillips High School, fellow alumni. So tell him hi
nice.
For me next time you see him. But
I will.
So you mentioned Contreras. We had an argument the other day that because Derek Gould came out with an article about Contreras, how he's working to get his Gold Glove and how he's trying to be Yachty-like, I guess. He's a fiery guy. But the other day, Eric Kratz is like, I don't like him. I don't like Contreras. I think he just throws the ball around too much. He's not a good catcher.
Ooh,
so what's he doing? Yeah, right? I mean, what's he doing, though, to improve to be that guy? What are the things that you've seen from him that have changed from the Cubs to the Cardinals?
That's a good question. And, I think we're still learning a lot about Contreras and who he is as a teammate, who he is as a catcher. I think the Cardinals, sometimes it's just about getting a fresh start in a new organization. I mean, when you take into consideration when Contreras was signed by the Cubs, he's really spent almost 15 years in that organization. Sometimes you just have to go to a new place to learn more. And I think the Cardinals and how highly they value defense and what they do to promote it inside the club has been a good change for him. I think it also helps that he's coming into a clubhouse that is filled with leadership, where he necessarily doesn't have to be that one guy like maybe he was with the Cubs last year. He's coming into a clubhouse that has Adam Wainwright, friend of the show. It has Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, and all these guys lead in different ways. And I've seen Contreras kind of just step in, look around and say, I can lead too, but I can lead in my own way. And I can do it when I have to I don't have to I can share that responsibility. So I've seen a lot of interest in Willson getting to know his pitching staff. I mean, he skipped playing in the World Baseball Classic this year. Obviously, he really wanted to represent Venezuela, but him doing that was one of the first things Adam Wainwright said to me. He's like, I'm kind of being a hypocrite here, but Willson not going to the WBC and staying and learning what he can about his pitching staff and improving his defense with the club, that's a great sign. This clubhouse is really bought in, and it's funny. If you went around the clubhouse before the Cardinals signed Contreras, the general consensus in that group probably would have agreed with Eric. They didn't like him very much. But the overall thoughts about Contreras has completely done a 180. They are completely on board, and I think both sides can feed off that energy.
Well, I appreciate you agreeing with me and AJ taking my words out of context. But I want to hear.
You can run that back if you want.
Taking my words out of context, but it's okay. We'll run it back. We're being recorded here. What is a fear? What is a fear from that clubhouse when you sign a guy that's never caught more than 116 games. When you're replacing, obviously the biggest fear is he's got to replace Yadier Molina. But we just talked about Anthony Volpe replacing Derek Jeter. Like, he's not he has to be himself. What's the biggest fear when they signed him? What you hear from the fan base, from even from players?
No, you're right. And a big concern about the front office was, can this guy catch the majority of games? Because they were looking for a catcher hybrid position that could DH, maybe play some first base, maybe play some outfield. They were looking for a starting catcher. They have not had to do that in 2 decades. So this was a big decision for Mo and the rest of the front office. And that was their biggest fear when they asked Contreras at their meeting that they had before the winter meetings that ultimately led to him signing with St. Louis. And they said, how many games could you catch? Like, what are you looking for? And Contreras said he wanted to do upwards of 130. And that sounds like a lot, especially as you mentioned, Eric, where, he hasn't caught more than 116. But that's, I think, going to be the biggest test for the Cardinals and for Contreras, is how can they maximize his production at catcher? Because Andrew Knizner is fine as a reserve. He's really respected in the clubhouse. He's very knowledgeable with the pitching staff. But all he wants a catcher that can hit. With all respect to Yadier Molina, probably in the Hall of Fame, potentially first ballot. That offensive production from his spot over the last 3 seasons was not good. So for Contreras, I think they are willing to kind of balance out a lack of assuredness in how many games he can catch, knowing that he is going to hit and be a staple offensively for that lineup. When you look at that Cardinals lineup offensively, dare I say, it looks pretty good. I think they could potentially have a top 5 offense in baseball this year, and that kind of alleviates a little bit of the fear that Contreras won't be as durable behind the plate.
So Katie, Eric already banged on Contreras about him coming over to the Cardinals. Now Contreras has to deal with the starting pitching and the pitching staff of the Cardinals. The 5 starters, I argued with him, are pretty solid when they're healthy. Wainwright, Flaherty, Matz. Scott, too.
You've argued a ton with me. Yeah. AJ thinks that they have the best rotation on the planet.
I did not say that. I said they are above average.
On the whole planet.
On the entire planet, there's one rotation.
1 through 5, their rotation is very solid. Wainwright, Michaelis, Flaherty, Matz, Montgomery.
Hurt.
Okay, he's going to miss some time. But I'm saying when they're healthy, like you guys argued. So, Katie, tell me why I'm right, and then explain to them why they are wrong.
That's a great way to phrase that question. I'm actually going to use that with Ollie to start the press conference, and we're going to see how he goes. I think he'll really like it.
Hey, I mean, think about it, though, for you. You said this Cardinals team has a very solid starting rotation. We talked about this last week, Katie. My response was, I think that is the weak point of the St. Louis Cardinals ball club right now. Offense looks pretty solid. Defense, exceptional. Bullpen looks pretty good, too. There's some fire in there. Starting rotation-wise, it's not super deep, and it's also not super swing and miss at a time when I think more baseballs are going to get through the infield. Your thoughts on why I'm right?
It's so funny because I feel like both of you guys are right, and I still think there's a problem with the starting rotation. Yes, they're very solid. Even with Wainwright out, Jake Woodford has been a pretty exciting young, not a prospect anymore, but young guy for them that really improved this spring. But solid, to describe a starting rotation, is, I mean, with no disrespect to these guys, I think Miles Michaelis is probably one of the more underrated starting pitchers in baseball. But I had someone put it to me this way. They asked me, okay, Cardinals are in a best-of-3 playoff game. Who are their 1-2 that are taking the hill? And I'm like, well, I don't know, because you could go Matz, you could go Montgomery, maybe Michaelis, and they're like, that's a problem. If you don't have a 1-2 like combo starter firehouse, then that's a problem for your rotation. And I was like, oh, you know what? That does make sense. I'm not too worried about the Cardinals rotation. I do agree that it is their probably weakest point of their roster, but what they do have that they haven't had in years is durability. Miles Michaelis did not miss a start last year, neither did Jordan Montgomery. I think those two, maybe because they're not super flashy, high strikeout guys, they kind of get overlooked in what they can do for a rotation. What I do think will be their game changer. It's not going to be the guy that, like, I feel like everyone's like Jack Flaherty can be a game changer, and he absolutely can. But I think what's really going to make or break this rotation is Steven Matz, because when the Cardinals signed him for $44 million last year, they expected him to take the hill or take the mound almost, every single time he was available. And he had 2 separate injuries and he wasn't able to do that. But when he was healthy, he looked really good. He also looked really good this spring. So I'm excited to see what Matz can do. I know none of these names really like strike fear. Like you're not going to roll out someone like Steven Matz and have the same reaction as Max Scherzer, right? But I do think the durability and the experience of the rotation is a plus in their positive direction. But the lack of swing and miss, and I think just the lack of overpowering stuff is a concern. The Cardinals do have one of the best defenses in the game. They also can still position pretty smartly, just even though they can't really shift anymore. There is a way to position against, use the metrics and give your defense the best shot. So we'll see. I will say, maybe this is my hot take of the first half. The Cardinals have plenty of depth to swing for a trade at the deadline, and I could definitely see them going that route if they need to in terms of bolstering up the rotation.
So, before you go, Katie, you can't see Scott. Scott's sitting next to me. When you said Steven Matz, his face was like,
well, yeah, no, based on
what? Steven Matz?
Wait, Kratz, we also have a group chat that we do the whole show too, Katie, and I made the face that Kratz can't see, and it's not against your take, it's against and Steven, I actually looked. He's had more durable seasons than I remember. Yeah, 2018, 30 starts. 2019, 30 starts. 2020, obviously, was 2020. And he was, I think, hurt for some of it. Maybe not. 9 starts. And 6 starts. 29 starts in 2021. And then last year, he made 10 starts. Did he make 5 appearances out of the bullpen last year?
He did. He was coming back. He tore his ACL fielding a grounder on his first game back. His last pitch of the day. Little comebacker towards ACL, but he was able to come back within less than 2 months, but obviously wasn't stretched out to start at that point. So he was a late inning, long relief guy. So
Kratz, what did you say in the group chat?
No, those numbers, I should have looked up the numbers before I said it. I said he always feels like he's hurt.
I got you guys.
I mean,
that's why he's an under the radar pick.
Nice. Yeah. I like it.
That's fair.
I like that.
But still, how much better is the Brewers rotation? Because when you say to me, let's say the Brewers sneak in as a wild card and you go, who's pitching game 1? I'm like, instead of who is it? I'm like, is it Woodruff? Is it Burns? I think Peralta's going to have a huge year. So I'm like, I'll go Burns, then Woodruff, then Peralta, who I think is going to have a huge season if he stays on the mound and fresh. Your thoughts on how much of a difference there is there? I know the Cardinals probably have a huge advantage in some other categories, but to me, that's why it's not just like an easy book it. This team's running away with the division.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen what Corbin Burns has done to the Cardinals. They cannot figure him out. So that's already a +1 for Milwaukee. But I do think both teams have a little bit of questions in their starting rotation. And because of that, I think we can kind of balance them out in terms of making a wash there. But I think the Cardinals just overpower Milwaukee in a lot of other aspects. I do agree that the Cardinals, they have to prove a lot of things. This isn't going to be a division. I know the NL Central isn't super competitive. This is no NL East. But I would hesitate to say they're going to run away with the division. But I do think they are the favorite. But I will say, I'm not going to say the Cubs are going to win the NL Central, but I wouldn't count them out. I think they're going to be a lot better than people expect. So I'd be interested to see how the Cubs and the Brewers finish out.
So Katie, you live in St. Louis now, I'm assuming?
I do.
Okay, don't say that out on the best streets that the Cubs have a chance, because they'll kick you right out of St. Louis.
She's a writer. It doesn't matter.
But so I said also on the show that, and I believe this, the Cardinals have a better chance of winning this division by double digits than they do of not winning this division. I mean, I feel from your comments that I can see that I think you agree with me. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes, I do think they should win the division, right? But it's a long season and a lot has to go right. A lot has to stay healthy. And I just think the way that the Brewers play, they're so scrappy. You can't really count them out until you can't at all. So I agree with you, AJ. I do think that it's the Cardinals division to win. We'll just see. I think because the Brewers know how to play, they have a good offense. I like their players. It'll be a little closer than maybe some people are expecting. I will say the projections that I saw for the total wins in that division, I think one projection had the Cardinals winning 86 games. That is really low to me. I think the Cardinals are going to be around a 95-win team. I don't think the Brewers are going to be that high.
Who besides, now you've said Matz, and besides Goldschmidt, Arenado, and Walker, who is going to be the key to this team that you've seen throughout camp that you're like, oh, this is kind of how it's shaping out and everything?
That's a good question. I want to go like Tyler O'Neill, Lars Nootbaar, international celebrity. I'm sure everyone is getting. I don't know if you can get tired of hearing about Lars Nootbaar because he's such a likable guy with such an infectious personality. But I feel like those are safe choices. I feel like Tyler O'Neill has to hit, and he'll completely transform that lineup. But I'm excited to see what Nolan Gorman can do. He was one of their top prospects last year, called up, had a rocky up and down kind of season as to be expected. We talked about the adjustment to the big leagues. It's tough, but Gorman has this insane pop from the left side that the Cardinals have lacked in their lineup for a while. Because he's so versatile, he can play second base, he can play third base and spell Arenado when he needs a day off from there. And his power, I mean, he had probably one of the most impressive springs in terms of what he did with pitch selection and approach. He can really lay off the high fastball, which he was not able to do last year. He crushes off speeds. It will be really exciting to see how that left-handed bat complements a pretty right-handed heavy lineup in terms of power. All of the rest of the Cardinals power guys come from the right side. So if Gorman can put up the same kind of production from the left, I think I'll feel more confident about my top 5 offense prediction.
Nice. So Katie, before we let you go, before we do these interviews, I always Google the person and try to find out something about them that most people don't know. So the books, Katie Woo, are those based on your childhood? Those are based on your childhood. Do you get royalties from those?
I don't get royalties, but some of the titles, although I have no affiliation with the book except for sharing the name, some of the titles are sadly applicable to my life. Like one that my uncle got me, which was so nice. It was like No Valentines for Katie Woo. And he was like, thought about you for so many reasons. So it just depends on the title. There are some really good ones. Basically, if it's like a positive title, not for me. Anything with a negative connotation where it's like, oh, bad day for her. Those I think you can kind of base on my life a little bit.
That's great.
That's amazing. Well, you don't even get like a Twitter mention every once in a while, like read your book. My child was inspired. Like I have the same name as Justin Bieber's manager. It used to be, I think, Taylor Swift's manager. That actually is what causes some mean tweets nowadays. Scooter Braun, but his name's Scott. And we've talked about this, Scooter and I.
Oh yeah, I know Scooter Braun. I'm a Taylor girl.
So right? So you're probably on the Taylor side of this conversation. Do you ever get like a, hey, great job, really appreciate it? Because you guys are both, I mean, you're both writers. So there's like, for me, I'm not in music. I like music, but it doesn't make sense. And now I get to respond to it and be like, you sure? Or wrong dude? Have you ever gotten a parent being like, hey, love your books?
No, not a parent, but a lot of Cardinals fans will DM the books to me and be like, wow, saw this at a bookstore and thought of you, which I think is really cute. But again, it goes back to the title. I'm judging them by which title they send to me. It better only be a positive one.
I agree. All positive vibes from Katie. That was a good call, though.
So they only, I'm assuming, DM you the positive ones, because it's not going to be like Katie Woo wrote a crappy article in The Athletic. I'm pretty sure
oh my gosh, that's going to be their next book. Another bad article by Katie Woo.
That's good. Hey, Katie, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it and the support for the show. We love having you on at some point, again, of course, as the season rolls on. And happy almost opening day to you.
You got it, guys. Anytime you need me, I'll be around. Happy almost opening day. I'm sure we'll be in touch.